No, it's not important. Just ask him.
Hi everyone. This week I'm here with Justin Skizak and Patrick Ray, and
Hey,
good to have you with me.
Yeah, good to be
hey,
here.
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's good. I've heard about you guys and your project for a while now, because it's been how long was it since you actually did this whole "I'll push you"? Well, when did you actually do the walk, and when did the whole idea start?
Yeah, we did it in 2014. That was our first pilgrimage. That was the full from Saint Jean all the way to Santiago, which was incredibly challenging
Yes, I
by
imagine.
wheelchair, which is
Exactly, which is the whole point, because you did it in wheelchair, and then
yeah,
and
yeah.
Patrick
Um,
helped you, and then I guess the whole thing came out of the "I'll push you" came in, because it was
yeah.
it you, Justin, that had the idea of wanting to do it?
Yeah, so so just to give everybody perspective on my life specifically, I have a progressive neuromuscular disease. It gets worse over time, and now I live life in a wheelchair. So I have to be cared for pretty much every aspect of my life, like getting in and out of bed, getting my clothes on, showering, bathroom, feeding, all of that. And it's not a fun disease that I have. It's called multifocal acquired motor axonopathy,
Wow.
which is they call it MAMA for short, MAMA, but it's almost identical to ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not a good prognosis, but my life is definitely a challenge, and it was triggered by a car accident I was in when I was just about 16 years old.
Mm.
And then kind of my life has progressed. Pat and I have known each other our whole lives. I mean, we're born literally 36 hours apart in the same hospital. So we've known each other our whole lives. And when I had the idea of doing this pilgrimage, I learned it from a public access TV show here in America. And I just knew that I wanted to do it. And then I asked Pat if he wanted to do it with me. And his response was, "I'll push you." So that's how that kind of all birthed. Our original idea was just Pat and I going together. I mean, that was it. There was no movie, nothing was gonna. I mean, there was not even remotely on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And it was kind of Pat's boss that started the whole idea for us, and Pat can kind of talk about that piece, I guess.
Yeah,
Sure.
so it's kind of crazy. So Justin has this idea. I still remember when, I mean, we were going down to San Diego, my wife and I. Justin was living in San Diego at the time. So my wife and 3 kids were trucking down to San Diego to hang out with Justin and his family. And he pops this question, and we had been thinking for a long time that we wanted to do a trip, just the 2 of us.
Yep.
Because the 4 of us, my wife and I, and then Justin and his wife, we've done all kinds of trips together. And we had never done something just the 2 of us that was big. It was like weekends here, or I would go down to San Diego kind of thing, but something that was just for us. And so as we've been toying this idea around, Justin throws this out there. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I'll push you. And then it just kind of got tabled because life, we were dealing with all kinds of things.
Yep.
And so, a big, I guess, obstacle was that we just recently adopted our youngest from China. Just a few years before. And so just that adjustment period, it just did a lot of things. And I started working in a specific role in a hospital here in the Boise, Idaho area. And my boss, Ed, amazing man, he took good care of us as employees. And so he had this big like work barbecue where everything was put aside. There's no work, no stress, just let's go, it's eat, drink, and be merry kind of thing, right? And so all my team members together with their families at this park. And several years have gone by since Justin had, thrown it out there. Well, I guess about a year. And I see a guy rolling down the sidewalk in his manual wheelchair. And Justin pops in my head like, man, if we're going to do this, we just got to pull the trigger. We just need to do it. Like, no more waiting. There's not going to be a right time. We just got to just go. So I kind of wandered over to the swings. I'm pushing my oldest daughter on the swings. And Ed comes walking up to me. And we're just small talk. And he says, hey, you got any big plans next summer? Kind of question. I'm like, actually, I need 6 weeks off next summer, Ed. And he's like, wait, what? How many weeks?
Yeah.
Why? He's like, why would you need that much time off? And Ed had heard about Justin, but he hadn't met him yet because Justin was still living in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And so I paint the picture of our friendship and this idea that Justin has, and Ed got really excited. And what started off as a conversation where he's kind of like really like reserved on engaging in this dialogue around 6 weeks off.
Yeah.
He's just, wait a minute. Okay, so how about, I promise you, this is what he said to me. I promise you I'll do everything in my power to give you the 6 weeks off, as long as you promise me that you guys will do everything in your power to document this on film.
Oh.
And it's like, okay, why?
Because I was thinking, because you kind of have it, the documentary is like, I was thinking you have to really have it really planned then, because you can't just make a documentary afterwards.
Not like that.
No, you have to really plan it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when I asked Ed why, he said, because if you don't document it on film, you're selfish and you're irresponsible. There's too much hope not to share it.
Yeah.
And it was like we had no perspective around that. We were just going to do this together.
Sure.
And so that set everything in motion, and really that was the tipping point. So I get a hold of Justin, like next day I'm like, dude, I got time off. We got to go do this next summer. But we got to figure out how to film this.
Yes, because that's my next question. How did you plan it then? Because I mean, I know from running the forum online for 15, 16 years, there are the occasional questions on wheelchairs, but there's not a lot of information out there on how to do it and what to do and where you can stay and where you can't stay, things like that. How did you plan it?
Well, I'll let Justin take that, actually. He was kind of on the planning side of things.
Yeah, so, once Pat and I had the idea, once Ed was like, you got to film it. I was in my former career, I was a graphic designer and multimedia designer. So I had been doing that for years. And even though my disease has progressed over time, I was still able to still do it. And throughout my career, I've met, a lot of people in different spaces that are kind of adjacent. So film is adjacent to design and all of that. So
sure.
An old college buddy of mine, his name's Terry Parrish. We've known each other forever. And he had started a video agency in San Diego, California. I had since relocated to Idaho. But at that time I was still living in San Diego, and I called him up and I said, hey man, I have this idea. And I hadn't seen him in like 15 years at that point. So, I see him and I'm like, and last time he saw me, I was walking, so now I'm in a power wheelchair and all, so he's just like, what is going on with you and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of filled him in all the things. And I said, I want to do this pilgrimage and we want to document it. And so through our conversation, he's like, yeah, we're in. Like, he immediately saw something there. And, as being creative individuals, we had a, very big idea of how we were going to do it. And it's a very long story, but I won't go into it because it would take forever. But, our original concept was to do a live documentary. So we would take a camera crew with us, multiple crews. They would film us, and then it'd be like webisodes that would be released like a week later. So it's kind of like it's in real time, almost real time. Yeah. And the budget for that was like $1.5 million US just for production, which means like people who don't know what that means just for the camera crews, just for, it's a lot of logistics.
And then you have to edit afterwards. So that's separate.
Editing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you got editing, and then you have the promotion off that. So you're probably looking at, if we were to go that route, it would have been about probably $2.5 million thing. And then you got to recoup that. So it's just insane. In a nutshell, like, it didn't work out. We had tried reaching out to brands, see if they get involved, blah, blah, and just nobody really wanted to take part in it. And we got to the point where we're about 3 months out from leaving. And our director, Terry, calls us. He's like, we don't have the money. We can't send a crew, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, would you guys wait a year? And Pat and I were like, nope, we're going. Because the way my disease progresses, you know, it kind of ebbs and flows. So it's not like it's this constant, it is constant to a certain degree, but it has like spikes where I get worse very quickly. And we didn't want to run that risk of waiting another year because a lot can happen in a year. So Pat and I said, nope, we're going. So you either send a crew with us or don't. And he's like, well, okay, we'll get back with you, or no, or whatever it was at that time. And we're like, okay, well, whatever. And so about 3 weeks prior to us leaving, 3 weeks, we're already like plane tickets, like everything. And, you know, it was, you know, he's like, we want to go. We're going to do it. We're making it happen. And so it's a miracle. It truly is a miracle. We got everything done at all. I mean, we got our last camera guy show up at our door of our hotel in St. Jean the night before we start walking. Like,
wow. So then instead of doing the live idea, instead of doing that, we're going to record it and then edit once you're home. Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is we had no real idea. I mean, it's the kind of thing where we don't know if we're going to make it. We have no clue. But that was one of the things that kind of excited Terry and then his business partner, Chris, about the documentary. Because normally you have a story that you're filling the gaps in. You have like A to Z, but what are all the middle points in a documentary typically, right?
Yeah.
Where this is, we got a starting point and we have no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
So there was a risk, but it was also exciting. And so they just captured everything they could on film, and, you know, and off we went.
So then in the end, how many were you actually traveling?
So it was Justin and I, and then for the first 10 days, we had our buddy Ted, who is a firefighter paramedic here locally that came along to help. And then as far as the video crew, we had Terry was the director. We had 2 videographers, or guys filming, and then a PA or a production assistant who kind of keeps things charged, offloads data, that kind of thing. So very, very bare bones crew. You know.
That's amazing.
But to answer your question regarding wheelchairs, I mean, in the off-road wheelchair market, there's really not, at that time, there was very, very few.
I was going to ask that because I know nothing about wheelchairs, but I don't know if the one wheelchair I have, we can talk about that later, but I have a wheelchair in my office that someone made. It was specially made for off-road.
Right.
For the Camino, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you have a specially made one for you, or did you use one that you had already?
Yeah. So that was kind of the first task. Once we kind of decided we're going to go on this thing, we're going to film it. I needed a wheelchair. I mean, I'm in a, what's called a power wheelchair. So battery operated wheelchair. That's what I use every day. And there's no way, I mean, it's absolutely impossible to take a power wheelchair on the Camino. Yeah. There's lots of problems with that. So I needed something that could be manually meaning not battery operated, could be pushed, pulled, or whatever. So I just started hunting for what I could find. And I found actually, it was kind of a crazy story. These 2 best friends, one guy was a paraplegic, I believe, or a high quad.
He's high quad, yeah.
High quad. So neck down. So arms and legs were paralyzed. And best friend duo out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And I reached out to him and said, hey, I want to do this pilgrimage. And I think your chair, they had done a couple of these chairs, and they were, they're custom made. So they make them to my size and my whatever. And I said, this is what we're doing. And they're like, yeah, cool, we can do that. And it took about 5 months to make the chair.
Wow.
And I tell you what, I mean, even though the front wheel broke off the first day, or the second day, technically, sorry. We could talk about that later if we need to, but I mean, it's a rock solid chair. I mean, they did a really, really good job making this thing, and it works really, really well. So
now, if someone's listening to this and they're in a wheelchair and they want to do the Camino, what would your suggestion be? Chair wise, and like in general, without going into all, I'm sure you have a long list of things, but just a few things that may be important to think about.
So there's a couple different brands that make some really good off-road chairs. Grit here in the US, GRIT. I think it's called gogrit.com or .us. I can't remember the URL, but they're called Grit chairs.
Okay.
And they're pretty good. We've had I know some people that have used those on our Camino that we did this last fall, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But there's another one by this guy named Jeff out of Bend, Oregon. It's called Adventure, like adventure, but chair at the end instead of adventure. ADVEN. And he's coming to market with that. They are quite costly. I think they're about 8,000 US.
Okay.
But
you need to have something like that. You think you need to have something like that to do it?
Absolutely.
You can't do it in anything else. No.
Especially if you're wanting to do the Pyrenees and I mean, anything outside of the last 100K from Sarria aren't in. You're going to need something that's really, really durable. We've had people use their actual manual wheelchairs that they get, they're called rigid frame chairs. So they don't fold, or there's kind of like the frame is there, and they put mountain bike tires on them. And they have this device called a freewheel, which attaches to the front. It's like a 10-inch wheel that makes it a 3-wheel device. Those work fairly well.
Good. So I guess if someone's at home and they're on a budget, imagine, could you like say, okay, I want to do maybe a few stages, maybe I'm going to skip this stage because it's difficult. Would it be possible to kind of patch together something, do you think, or?
You can for sure, but just from the sheer physicality of doing this thing, you're going to have a lot of help. I mean, there's sections that just are not navigable with a wheelchair unless you have a crew of people who can carry you over them.
That's true.
I mean, Osabrero, for instance, there's no way you're taking a chair at that thing unless you have a team of a lot of people. That took us 17 people to get Justin up that mountain.
17 people.
17.
Is that the story where people
were 17?
where people were just kind of coming in? Tell a story about that story, if you can. Did you? Because you didn't have 17 people at the bottom of the hill, did you?
No. We were in a situation where, so to kind of go back in time, Ted, I mentioned earlier, was with us for the first 10 days. He helped get us over the Pyrenees mountain range. And we kind of got into a groove with his help. And we had different pilgrims step in and help along the way. You're going to experience that. If you're someone, whether you're in a wheelchair or you're walking, you're going to meet people that are going to help you in various ways. It's just the nature of the Camino. People want to press in and be a part of one another's stories. In our situation, because it was very unique, people saw the struggle. A lot of people wanted just to help out. So, but when Ted goes home on day 10, we have this long stretch where we're really at the mercy of the pilgrims and just life in general. And so we had multiple sections where people stepped in for a little bit, for a few days, sometimes just a few hours, whatever it might be. A few gals were with us off and on for 2 weeks. But when we got to the base of Osabrero, it was kind of a combination of things happened. But we're at a point where my body is just so done. I'm spent. I'm actually I'm at the point where we think I'm injured. It turns out I probably was. And there's no way that I'm getting Justin up this mountain. But we had met some guys earlier on the trail that asked if they could help us out. Turns out they were actually from Boise, Idaho, of all places. We were actually in Burgos, in the cathedral, and these guys kind of flagged us down. But we had agreed with these two gentlemen, names are Joe and Richard, to meet at the base of Osabrero on a given day because they wanted to help us where we needed the most assistance. And so we're thinking, all right, we got Joe and Richard. At this point, a friend of ours, Michael, and his son showed up from back home. So we've got,
I think we're good.
Theory, there's 5 of us, right? We got 5 people to help us up this mountain.
Yeah.
No, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Dude, there's no way 5 guys could have gotten a wheelchair up that thing. What happened is that when we go to meet Joe and Richard at the base of Osabrero, where it's a little town, I can't remember the name of the town, but it's basically, you have a supermercado, cafe / bar / albergue, and a few outbuildings. And I mean, the town is probably like 35 people. I don't know. It's tiny.
Yeah.
Joe and Richard are sitting at the cafe waiting for us. They flag us down. We say hi, hugs, kisses, do our thing, go grab some provisions at the supermercado. When we get up to leave, the whole cafe gets up. And Justin says, who are these people? What's going on here? And Joe says, they're here to help. We've been sitting here for the past couple hours waiting for you. And we see all these pilgrims that we've met for the past 2, 3, 4 weeks. And they ask what we're doing. We say, we're here to get Justin up the mountain. He's in a wheelchair. We want to help. So one by one, they stopped. So when we start at the base of Osabrero, there's 12 people.
Great.
Way better than 5.
Yes.
And off we go. And it was, I helped to a certain degree, but it was the point where, my body was just so beat up that these people did everything I couldn't do. And then one by one, people popped in as we were climbing up the mountain. And pretty soon we have 17 people just stepping in. It took 6 people at any given time to carry Justin up the mountain. Sure. And so while you have 6 people carrying him, you've got all these people that are carrying, backpacks, camel's backs, sticks, whatever it might be. And it's just this constant ebb and flow and synergy of it. It's like a human symphony. People are just gathered around Justin and carrying him up. And I'm kind of glad, well, actually, I'm really glad that I was forced to step back from a physical standpoint because I couldn't do it all. Yeah. And I got to watch it unfold. I just got to observe these people just press in. It was just the most beautiful representation of what community is capable of achieving when we set aside differences, agendas, that kind of thing, and just band together around one cause. It was amazing.
Nice. That's nice. Any other surprises along the way? I'm sure there were hundreds, if not thousands. Anything that you had to deal with that you were really didn't have any idea would come?
This is like a surprise, but in a awesome. It's so a little of a thing, but end up being a kind of a bigger thing. And I'll explain it in a minute. Is we were in the Meseta, and I can see the town, but I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. And we had just had lunch, and we had this lunch overlooking this beautiful valley and whatever. And we were just kind of hanging out. We're like, all right, let's go. And we're kind of, following the yellow arrows, whatever. And we start going, blah, blah, blah. And we start kind of going down this little hill. And this guy shows up out of nowhere, like this, just a local man. And he just arms waving, flag, he stop. And so we stop, and he tells us, he's like, no, go this way. And so we're like, okay, but the trail's this way. And he's like, go this way. We're like, okay, I guess we should probably listen to him because he probably lives here. So we're like, all right. So, we go back up and start going the way that he did. And I am so glad we listened to him because he gave us a route that saved us easily probably 2 hours worth of work. Easy. It was basically the trail went down, and as it kind of came down, it went kind of underneath this bridge, and there's all these steps, cross the little stream, and then up a ton of steps. And all we had to do is go right and go about 300 yards out of the way, and it was all road, flat, and it saved us all this work. So,
wow. And on that day, it was just you and me.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of pilgrims around. So I don't know what we would have done.
Yeah. So, and there's moments like that. I know when another one is we're coming into Astorga, and Astorga has a really steep hill to get right up into the center of town. And again, it was just Pat and I at that point. And
Christy
who was? Oh, Christy was with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's three of us. Total, or 2 helpers and me, and we're working it's a steep hill. And to push me up, to give people an idea, I'm 200 with my chair, me and gear, it's like 250 pounds. So it's heavy. And I'm like dead weight. So you start pushing me up a hill, it's really slow. And when we were coming up into Astorga, and it was cool, this guy passes us in a car, like this young guy passes us in a car. He stops, pulls his car, stops traffic, gets out of his car and pushes me and helps push me up to the top of the hill. And the whole road is stopped. All the cars are stopped. Everybody, they're all just waiting. Gets out, pushes me up to the top of the hill.
This is amazing.
Comes back, gets in his car and drives off.
That's great.
It's like those things are right.
Yeah, it sounds like this from the stories you're telling, that you had in a way a normal Camino in a way, because this is what happens to a lot of pilgrims. This in general, people find people very helpful, and they have all these stories of these nice people, you know, helping out. I guess the effect of the help is bigger in your case because it would save you from a lot more physical work than any other normal pilgrim. But you know, it's nice to hear.
I mean, we kind of went into the pilgrimage with, we really tried to set our expectations very low. We weren't going into saying all these people are going to help us. We're going to do, you know, we didn't do that at all. We're just like, okay, we're going to see it. We call it the grand experiment in humanity, where we're kind of like thrown into a blender and see how we come out on the other side.
Yeah.
We didn't pre-plan, with a few exceptions. We didn't really pre-plan where we're going to stay every night. So accessibility in rooms was like a challenge every day. I mean, everything.
Well, that's something that kind of going back to the beginning, you mentioned, Ivar, about the kind of just the wheelchair perspective. We did it probably the most exciting but worst way possible as far as planning, because we don't want to be prescribed. We wanted just to let it unfold. And so we actually had we worked with Camino Ways on part of this trek. And they had offered to have a support vehicle where we could put a second chair for Justin in the, you know, that we like a smaller chair we could navigate, you know, albergues and apartments where we wound up staying, and then for medical equipment and that kind of thing. And we said no. We're like, no, we're not going to do that, even though we had the option. We want to do it the most real, raw way we can. And so, I mean, we had his wheelchair, Justin and I, our 2 backpacks, and that was it. And my pack weighed 15 pounds, his weighed 12.
Yeah.
So the only equipment we had was basically a urinal for Justin and then backup tubes for the chair, nothing else. And so we had to figure it out every single day, how far, where, you know.
Yep.
And in doing so, that also kind of kept that element of the Camino alive and well, where it's stripping away kind of the prescribed things of life, right? And it really helped us just be so focused on the moment right then and there, because we weren't necessarily, you know, thinking 2, 3, 4 days in advance. It's like, we have all these things to figure out now.
Sure.
And it allowed a lot of other people the opportunity to help in ways that may not have been there if we had been like, no, we got it. We're going to, you know, plan out every single little detail. And while it was harder, I'm sure it was better.
Sure, I could see that.
You know, and that's an interesting point that Pat's making, because in the life of somebody who lives with a disability like me, when I'm at home, I have the comforts of, I know where things are. I know how things work. That's the, you know, I don't have the luxury of just getting up, popping on a plane and, you know, going and staying wherever I want, getting any car that I want, or vehicle that I want. I mean, there's so many logistics that play into my life that a lot of people that I've found just get so comfortable being at home. They're afraid to go out, because, you know, when you're removed from your home, your environment that you're comfortable in, and thrown into something like the Camino, where literally every day is a question mark. You have to have the right mindset for that. So that it's not the Camino. If I was to give anybody that has limited mobility or slow walker or you know, whatever that situation is for somebody, you know, your mindset is going to be your number one, because you have to be willing to be flexible. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. Like, not only just get out of your comfort zone, but way out of your comfort zone. And is it worth it? Absolutely. Like, it's absolutely worth it. I mean, I've been able to do things that I never thought I was able to do because I was able to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. So that's kind of my next question. I was wondering, like, so you arrived in Santiago then, and I asked pilgrims this: are you happy? Are you sad? Are you relieved? Tired? I'm sure you were. but but how do you feel? Like, do you feel like your sad is over? Are you happy you did it? What kind of feeling do you have when you arrive?
All of them.
Yes.
All the feelings,
everything.
You know, I mean, we're exhausted at this point. And Justin and I have a little bit different perspectives, because he was on the receiving end of so much, you know, physical help.
Sure.
But like you said earlier, with the, we had a kind of a normal Camino because there was so many people stepping in. I was still the benefactor of all this grace, love, and mercy and compassion along the way. And in a lot of ways, while I'm pushing Justin physically, I get thrust into the situation where he's kind of pushing me emotionally and mentally to a whole new level of engagement with people, with him, with life. And you have this spiritual and emotionally just exhausting yet enlightening journey. And it's bittersweet. You don't want it to be over because the simplicity of life, the depth of conversation, when you spend 8 hours walking with someone who's a complete stranger in the morning, by the end of the day, you know them better than some people you've known since you were a kid.
Yeah. Because
you just open up and it's such an intimate experience. And so to say goodbye to that to a certain degree, I mean, there's sadness, there's grief. But the other, flip side of that is that we hadn't seen our wives and our kids in weeks, and our wives were waiting for us in Santiago. So to see them there and be able to embrace them when we haven't, just smelled their hair or touched their skin in so long, just joy, elation. And so it's such an interesting kind of a dichotomy of these two sides of emotions that are kind of you're wrestling with. But like I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was such an amazing experience for me to be able to really just witness so much beauty in our world in such a concentrated period of time.
And I remember as we came into Santiago, a very clear thought came across. I mean, right as we're coming into the square, we had all these people cheering us in and all that, and it was this beautiful, amazing moment. But I remember thinking very clearly, is like, man, have I sold myself short of things that I'm capable of doing. And I think that's the case for a lot of people, is that they feel that that looks too hard, I'm not going to even try it because looks too hard. I mean, it's the fear of that unknown. But I just remember thinking like, oh man, like what else is possible, right? What else can we, do with this or go and it was, for us, it was kind of like the beginning of everything. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning.
Exactly. Because I looked at, is it .com or is it the .com? I'llpushit.com. I'll put the link in the description. And I was on there and I see there's a book that you have doing speaking engagement. You're doing a lot of things based on this documentary that you filmed while you were walking. Was there a children's book as well?
Yeah.
And an online course. What was the online course? I didn't get the details.
We have multiple online courses in different things. So yeah, I mean, out of this, none of this was on that spectrum at all. I mean, we didn't even think about this. I mean, it was, we came back, we're like, okay, what are we gonna do with all this footage?
Sure.
We had 600 hours plus of footage. Like, what do you do with it? And so it was a 2-year span of getting the film edited and put together and all that. And it's a very long, tedious process to do that. And in the middle of all that, we got offered a book, multiple book deals. So we ended up getting, that kind of came into that. And out of the two of us, Patrick is the writer between the two of us. So he's a phenomenal writer. And he'd kind of done it as hobby for a long time, but not like actual written books. And so when we got this opportunity to write I'll Push You, which is the same title as the movie, I'll Push You. Sure. It was an opportunity for us to tell our story, to go much deeper. Because in film, you can only go so deep. I mean, sure. It would be a very, very long movie. To tell everything. So the film, the book is a good sister piece to that. And that came out and along with the movie, and it's been very, very well received, which is very humbling, and we're very happy about that.
That's nice.
And then it kind of led into technically the children's book came before I'll Push You. Pat wrote it right when we came back.
About 2 weeks after
when he read it to me, I mean, the children's book is called The Push, and it has nothing to do with the Camino. It's more about our friendship as kind of 10-year-old boys. because we've known each other for such a long time. And when Pat read me the book, I mean, he has an amazing story how it all came about. But when he read it to me the first time, I knew immediately, I was like, we have to do something with this. I mean, it was a beautiful story, and I just love the message from it, about how we all, no matter our backgrounds, we all have something to offer. And that kind of like got tabled in a way when we got the I'll Push You book and started writing that, because it's a major commitment. Sure. And then ended up coming out after that as our second book, our children's book, and has been very well received as well. And then we just released our third book called Imprints, which is kind of a continuation of I'll Push You. And Pat can talk more about that.
Yeah,
sure.
About that? I wouldn't say it's a continuation, because we won't talk about the story of I'll Push You at all. But it's it's a continuation of I'll Push You as far as how it's impacted our lives. Because as we speak, we travel, that kind of thing. We talk about, all kinds of philosophies, ideas, and ways to engage in life and relationships, and just to lead and love well. And through that, we've encountered lots of stories of individuals who have really made a profound impact on someone else's life through real simple ways. We kind of get wrapped up in the idea that, like, I don't have a big platform. I'm not, a CEO or a head of a foundation. So what I do doesn't really matter as much as what they do. But the reality is that anybody who's affecting change on a global scale points back to people who modeled grace, love, mercy, and compassion when they were children or in their younger years, and it set them on a path to be agents of change. And so Imprints is of those kind of stories. People who have had their whole world just completely turned upside down in the best of ways because someone took a little bit of time.
Sure.
To write.
That's nice. And then also now do you do walks from Sari as well now? You did one last year, right? Is that right?
Right. Yeah. So last year, 2019, we did one with, we had 10 individuals in wheelchairs. We had a woman who was visually impaired and 37 helpers. So 48 people in total. And
that's amazing. That's amazing, because last year I had someone come in, and I think they were someone that was part of your trip last year. They came in with a wheelchair, and they was wondering if I could store it for them. I was a bit surprised because I don't know nothing about wheelchairs, but I said, well, sure, I could do that. And they were saying, well, this gentleman was from Australia. He said this chair was very expensive. It was tailor-made in New Zealand. They flew it in, and it was used for this walk from Sarria to Santiago. And he was wondering if I could keep it here in my office, and then I could have it there, and people that would need a wheelchair for walking or for doing the Camino, they could just use it. So I said, sure, that would be great. So that's kind of how I connected up with the whole I'll Push You project and everything. So I'm just thinking, now this wheelchair, right? The one I have.
Oh yeah.
Would you say this is a good chair for someone that could want to do the Camino?
Yeah, as long as the people that assist. Like you on your own,
How many people would you have with a person if you want to do it from? Let's say if you want to do it from Sarria, just do a week.
Do a week, 5 helpers.
Minimum, 5.
5 helpers per person, per chair.
Yeah, the ratio is 1. A good ratio we found is 1 person who's disabled, and it's an exponent of 5. So you just need that. I mean, even from Sarria on in, there's lots of stretches where you need help.
Sure.
Well, and you factor in just the elevation gain and loss from Sarria to Santiago. I can't remember what it is in meters, but it's about 7,000 plus feet up and 7,000 plus feet down. That's no big deal over the course of 6 or 7 days of hiking.
Yeah.
Well, you throw a chair in the mix that weighs 200 to 300 pounds with a person in it.
Sure.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have the right number of people are going to get hurt. That's the big issue.
Sure. So then this year, I guess you're not doing anything because of the virus. But next year, is it planned another week from Sarria? Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people are wanting to sign up, what do they go to the website?
Just go to I'llPushYou.com, and there's
Yep.
a link for accessible Caminos.
I'll put the link in below the video.
So we are actually so on that topic. So we're supposed to be in Spain right now.
Sure.
We're supposed to be there. We had 2 groups we were doing. We vastly underestimated the demand for this. And what's cool about the accessible Caminos that we put together is that, you know, we've worked out all of the logistics. So we talked about earlier, people getting out of their comfort zone. You know, we've worked out transportation and hotel accommodations and a lot of the nuances that come with people with disabilities. So we've really put a lot of thought into that. And we had 2 groups that we're supposed to do this month, back to back pretty much. And so those got postponed until 2021 due to everything that's happening in the world.
Sure.
So, which is a bummer because we were really looking forward to coming back over. But, so we're just about to announce the remaining spots that are open. And I'm assuming they're going to go fairly quickly because now we have Holy Year.
Sure.
That's now extended into 2 years. Holy Years, is that now what it is?
I think so.
Yeah, but yeah, we you know, as somebody just goes to go to I'llPushYou.com and click on accessible Caminos, they can get on our wait list and we'll make that announcement. And we're gonna be making that very, very soon.
So how many wheelchairs in a group? Do you have a limit or?
We do have a limit. Yeah. We max out. I mean, we try and keep that 5-to-1 ratio. And so it all depends on who applies, kind of that alchemy of you know, right number of helpers versus those that are in need. And we also take into account that we have, like on this last one we took, we had a few young ladies that, I mean, they spend a lot of time in chair and they can navigate a lot of terrain on their own. So they need a little less help and some who need more. So there's a lot of variables that come into play, but we had 10 and that was too many.
Okay.
That was too many chairs. So we're trying to max out if we can fit everybody in the rooms, you know, and for lodging, 8 chairs would be our max.
And I want to specify that it's not just wheelchairs. It's people that have all types of disabilities. So, you know, somebody that has, we've had visually impaired people, deaf, are now going to be coming, or hearing impaired are going to be coming with us next year. You know, we've had people with other kind of developmental disabilities that want to, you know, maybe sons or daughters of people that want to join us. So it's not just wheelchairs. We do cap out on wheelchairs, as Patrick is saying, just because we have to. But it can go beyond just the chair. So if anybody who's listening to this or watching this, you know, if they know somebody who wants to join us, and, you know, it's all by application, and we personally interview everybody so that we make sure that we don't put somebody in harm's way, you know, because it is something that could potentially, you know, harm you if you're not careful. And we want to make sure that we're getting the right people, as well as, you know, they know what they're getting themselves into. So,
Well, very good. Well, and also if people are interested in doing it and using the chair that I have in my office, email me, and let me know.
And if somebody is interested, you know, and want to know some of the nuances for that chair, you know, they can reach out to us too. Just go to I'llPushYou.com and there's a contact form. And
that would be great, because I know there's a chair, all I know. So people want want details, you know, what's the size of the whatever, you know, maybe they could contact you. That would be better.
Yeah, absolutely. We're available.
Great. Anything else that you want to add?
Great. I appreciate the opportunity to share with your
No, it's great. Thank you for doing this. So if there's someone sitting now if someone that, for example, in a wheelchair thinking about doing the Camino, would you say it's worth it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. It is going to be the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it really depends on where you start from, but even if you start from do the last 111 kilometers, you know, from Sarria on in, it's worth it. that was the beauty of us being able to experience watching a group of people do it last fall, is because we got to see the Camino through their eyes and see them step out in faith, step out in community, and to see complete strangers come together. And, you know, we had like a mini Camino, like with our family basically.
Yeah.
And to see it through their eyes is like, it's priceless. I mean, it really is. It makes it all worth the time and energy, and for anybody to do it, even if they go with us or not, it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
It's worth it. Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks, Ivor. Appreciate it, man.
Okay.